We look to you for the answers, Father. We're always looking for what we want, but we are looking for you to give us what you want, Father, and we will accept your answer as the right answer. And we just want to give you thanks for that and just ask you to be with this study. Just ask these things and give you thanks in your Son's name, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen. Okay, thank you very much, author. It looks like we're going to have 6 readers, and I appreciate you repeating that reading list for me there, Steve. Very good. So we're going to need 6 readers, and it'd be nice if we have some people volunteer to read who have never read before. Let's give it a try. If you've never read, raise your hand, and we'd love to hear you read. So our Parsha is, what is the Parsha? Pekudei, right? And what does it mean? What does it mean? Accounts, yes, accounts. James Canzano says accounts, or appointments. Accounts of, yes, indeed. Okay. Well, as I get my other book here, we'll call up the first. The first reader is going to be Angelic Verses, and you're going to read for us from Shemot, or Exodus chapter 38, in verse 21 through 31. And I'll give you the blessing. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, may he bless Angelic, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family, and send blessings and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Angelic, verses 20.
Can you hear me? Just checking the mic. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, let me turn up the volume. Can you hear me now? Okay. These are the appointments of the dwelling place of the witness, which was appointed by the mouth of Moshe for the service of the Levites, by the hand of Ithamar, son of Aaron, the priest. And Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehudah, made all that Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And with him Oholiah, son of Hashamah, of the tribe of Dan, an engraver and designer, an embroiderer in blue and purple and scarlet material and in fine linen. All the gold prepared for the work, and all the work of the set-apart place, and it was gold of the wave offering, came to be 29 talents and 730 shekels, according to the shekel of the set-apart place. And the silver from the ones counted of the congregation was 100 talents, and 1,775 shekels, according to the shekel of the set-apart place. A buck, half a shekel for a head, according to the shekel of the set-apart place, for everyone passing over to those counted, from 20 years old and above, for 603,550 men. And the 100 talents of silver were for casting the sockets of the set-apart place and the basis of the veil. 100 sockets from the 100 talents, a talent for each socket. And of the 1,775 shekels he made hooks for the columns, and overlaid their tops, and made bands for them. And the bronze of the wave offering was 70 talents, and 2,400 shekels. And with it he made the sockets for the door of the tent of appointment, and the bronze slaughter place, and the bronze grating for it, and all the utensils for the slaughter place, and the sockets for the courtyard all around, and the bases for the courtyard gate, and all the pegs for the dwelling place, and all the pegs for the courtyard all around.
Okay, thank you, Angelic. You can take your hand down now. And next we'll have author. And let's see, Steve, do you have those verses again? Author, you're going to read starting in chapter 39. Verses, okay, verses 1 through 14. 1 through 14, chapter 39. Somebody says, repeat the blessing. It must not come through. Okay, I'll give you the blessing a second time, author. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, may he bless author, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessings and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, author, you can read the first 14 verses of chapter 3.
And of the blue and the purple and scarlet material they made woven garments to do the service in the set-apart place. And they made the set-apart garments which were for Aaron, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he made the shoulder garment of gold, of blue and purple and scarlet material, and of fine woven linen. And they beat out sheets of gold and cut it into threads, to work it in with the blue and the purple and scarlet material, and the fine linen, the work of a skilled workman. They made shoulder pieces for it to join it. It was joined at its two edges. And the embroidered band of his shoulder garment that was on it, it was of the same work of gold and blue and purple and scarlet material, and the fine woven linen, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And they made the shoam stone set in plated work of gold, engraved as signets are engraved, according to the names of the sons of Israel. And he put on the shoulders of all the shoulder garments stones of remembrance for the sons of Israel, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he made the breastplate a work of a skilled workman, like the work of the shoulder garment of gold, of blue, purple, and scarlet material, and the fine woven linen. It was square. They made the breastplate double, its length a span, its width a span, doubled. And they filled it with 4 rows of stones. A row of ruby, a topaz, an emerald was the first row. Second row, a turquoise, sapphire, and a diamond. And on the third row, a jacinth, an agate, and amethyst. And on the fourth row, a beryl, a shoam, and a jasper, set in plated work of gold in their settings. And the stones were according to the names of the sons of Israel, 12 according.
Okay. Thank you, author. And next up, we'll have Earl from Lethbridge. I'll give you the blessing. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, may he bless Earl, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessings and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Earl, you can read from where author left off to the end of the chapter, and I have to step out of the room for a minute or two, so I might not be back on right away. But go ahead, Earl.
Okay, Earl, we don't hear you. We're not hearing you, Earl.
Let's try that again. Is that better?
It's better.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks. And the stones were according to the names of the sons of Israel, 12 according to their names, engraved like a signet, each one with its own name according to the 12 tribes. And they made braided chains of corded work for the breastplate at the ends of clean gold. And they made 2 sets of gold and 2 gold rings, and put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastplate. And they put the 2 cords of gold in the 2 rings on the ends of the breastplate. And the 2 ends of the 2 cords they fastened in the 2 settings and put them on the shoulder pieces of the shoulder garment in the front. And they made 2 rings of gold and put them on the 2 ends of the breastplate on the edge of it, which was on the inward side of the shoulder garment. And they made 2 gold rings and put them on the 2 shoulder pieces underneath the shoulder garment on the front of it, close to its seam above the embroidered band of the shoulder garment. And they bound the breastplate by means of its rings to the rings of the shoulder garment with a blue cord, so that it would be above the embroidered band of the shoulder garment, and that the breastplate would not come loose from the shoulder garment, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he made the robe of the shoulder garment of woven work, all of blue. And the opening of the robe was in the middle, like the opening in a scaled armor, with a woven binding all around the opening, so that it would not tear. And they made on the hem of the robe pomegranates of blue and purple and scarlet material twined. And they made bells of clean gold and put the bells between the pomegranates on the hem of the robe, all around between the pomegranates. A bell and a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate, all around the hem of the robe, for the service as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And they made the long shirt of fine linen, the work of a weaver, for Aaron and his sons, and a turban of fine linen, and the turban ornaments of fine linen, and short trousers of fine woven linen, and a girdle of fine woven linen with blue and purple and scarlet material, the work of an embroiderer, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And they made the plate of the set-apart sign of dedication of clean gold, and wrote on it an inscription like the engraving of a signet, set apartness to Yahweh. And they put on it a blue cord to fasten it above the turban, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. Is that where I stopped?
No, you've actually gone too far, but just go ahead and finish to the end of the chapter.
Pardon me. I couldn't read it wasn't in the screen properly.
That's okay.
And all the work of the dwelling place in the tent of appointment was completed, and the children of Israel did according to all that Yahweh had commanded Moshe, so they did. And they brought the dwelling place to Moshe, the tent of all its furnishings, its hooks, its boards, its bars, and its columns and its sockets, and the covering of ram skins dyed red, and the covering of fine leather, and the veil of the covering, the ark of witness with its poles, and the lid of atonement, the table and all its utensils, and the showbread, the clean lampstand with its lamps, the lamps to be put in order, and all its utensils, and the oil for light, and the slaughter place of gold, and the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, and the covering of the tent for the tent door, the bronze slaughter place and its bronze grating, its poles and all its utensils, the basins with its stand, the screens of the courtyard, its columns and its sockets, the covering for the courtyard gate, its cords and its pegs, and all the utensils for the service of the dwelling place for the tent of appointment, the woven garments to do service in the set-apart place, the set-apart garments for Aaron, the priest, and his sons' garments to serve as priests, according to all that Yahweh had commanded Moshe. So the children of Israel did all the work. And Moshe looked over all the work and saw that they did it as Yahweh had commanded. So they had done. And Moshe
Amen. Okay, thank you, Earl. Hello, everyone. I'm finally here. It took a little bit to get here, so I do apologize for that. We had some technical glitches, which are always fun. What can I say? All right. But I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Rabbi Tom, for hanging in there until I got here. Okay, so we've got 2 more readings. Okay, so next up we've got Steve, Mr. Waffle. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Steve, who's called upon Yahweh in the Torah. But his set apart one, bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Steve, you're going to take us from Exodus chapter 40, the first 17 verses.
All right. Oops. All right, here we go. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, on the first day of the first new moon, you are to raise up the dwelling place of the tent of appointments, and you shall put in it the ark of the witness, and the screen of the ark with the veil. And you shall bring in the table and arrange what belongs on it, and bring in a lampstand and light its lamps. And you shall set the slaughter place of gold for the incense before the ark of the witness, and put the covering of the door to the dwelling place. And you shall set the slaughter place of the ascending offering before the door of the dwelling place of the tent of appointments, and shall set the basin between the tent of appointment and the slaughter place, and shall put water therein. And you shall set up the courtyard all around, and shall place the covering of the courtyard gate, and shall take an anointing oil, and anoint the dwelling place and all that's in it, and shall set it and all its utensils apart, and it shall be set apart. And you shall anoint the slaughter place and the ascending offering and all its utensils, and shall set the slaughter place apart, and the slaughter place shall be most set apart. And then you shall anoint the basin and its stand, and set it apart. And you shall bring Aharon and his sons to the door of the tent of appointment, and wash them with water. And you shall put the set apart garments on Aaron, and anoint him, and set him apart to serve as priest to me. And you shall bring his sons, and put long shirts on them, and shall anoint them as you anointed the father. And they shall serve as priests to me, and their anointing shall be for them an everlasting priesthood throughout the generations. And Moshe did according to all that Yahweh had commanded him, so he did. And it came to be in the first new moon of the 2nd year of the first day of the new moon that the dwelling place was raised up.
Amen. Amen. All right. Thank you, Steve. All right. We're going to finish up here with AJ. AJ's going to finish up the last reading. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless AJ, who's going down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, AJ, take us from verse 18 to the end of the book of Shemot.
Woohoo! All right, mic check. Good. All right. And Moshe raised up the dwelling place, and placed its sockets, and set up its boards, and put in its bars, and raised up its columns, and spread the tent over the dwelling place, and put the covering of the tent on top of it, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he took the witness, and put it into the ark, and he put the poles through the rings of the ark, and put the lid of atonement on top of the ark, and brought the ark into the dwelling place, and placed the veil of the covering to screen off the ark of the witness, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he put the table in the tent of appointment on the north side of the dwelling place outside the veil, and set the bread in order upon it before Yahweh, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he put the lampstand in the tent of appointment opposite the table on the south side of the dwelling place, and lit the lamps before Yahweh, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he put the gold slaughter place and the tent of appointment in front of the veil, and burned sweet incense on it, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he set up the covering to the door of the dwelling place. And he put the slaughter place of ascending offering before the door of the dwelling place of the tent of appointment, and offered upon it the ascending offering and the grain offering, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he put the basin between the tent of appointment and the slaughter place, and put water therein for washing. And Moshe and Aaron and his son washed their hands and their feet with water from it. And as they went into the tent of appointment, as it came near the slaughter place, they would wash as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he raised up the courtyard all around the dwelling place and the slaughter place, and placed the covering of the courtyard gate, and Moshe completed the work. And the cloud covered the tent of appointment, and the steam of Yahweh filled the dwelling place. And Moshe was not able to come in the tent of appointment, because the cloud dwelt on it, and the esteem of Yahweh filled the dwelling place. And when the cloud was taken up from above the dwelling place, the children of Israel went onward in all their journeys. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not set out till the day that it was taken up. For the cloud of Yahweh was on the dwelling place by day, and fire was on it by night, before the eyes of all the house of Israel in all their journeys.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you to all you readers. We just completed the book of Shemot, which means that we need to say, Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek, which means be strong, and may we be strengthened, and be strengthened. Because as we read the Word and study the Word, it should help us to be strong, and it should also strengthen us in our journey. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm over at the office in a different part of the building. Okay, we're all good. Okay. So let's do the traditional blessing at the end of the Torah portion, the Torah readings. All right. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth, has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. All right. We got 2 books down and a couple more to go. And so this is very exciting. As we finish the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus, as we're heading into Leviticus next week. Fabulous. Okay. And David Hayes is having a sneezing attack. You may want to pray for him real quick. That was from like 2 doors away. All right. Let me do a quick, we didn't get to do this here, but we'll go ahead and do a little quick wave here. See if I can figure out how to do that from this building. Let's see. It's not working. Is it working? No. Where is my camera not working? Apologies for being late. Okay, people are guessing the color of the shirt, and I'm not getting anything to work. It's blue, I see. So you guys see me, and I don't see me. That's very strange. Why is my video not playing right? That's very strange. But it's been a very strange day. Okay? No video here. We don't see you. Okay, let me stop it and try again. I don't know what happened there. Why is the video not working now? Because it's been one of those nights where things are just not working, I guess. I don't have anything blocking the camera. Very strange. Video. Start. Preview is not showing anything. Preferences. Video. Standard quality. Leave it there, done. Nope, still not working. Well, you know what? Everybody's right. I'm wearing 5 different shirts all at the same time. And I'll tap for you. Hear that tapping? I'm tapping my coin on the screen. Okay. So I guess that didn't work. At least you know it's my voice anyway. Anyway, I want to thank Rabbi Tom and David Hayes for helping to kind of get this going remotely till I could get to the building. For some reason, the software here wasn't working very well, and you couldn't see names on the side. I couldn't get microphones to work at my house. My other computer didn't log on at all to the internet. It was just a problem. Okay? So, but we're here, and we're doing the study, and it's awesome. Awesome. Okay. So, we have now just completed our book. Let me just give a couple of quick announcements. So, first announcement is that this Friday, okay, this Friday is Rosh Chodesh, okay? This Friday is going to be Rosh Chodesh for Adar the 2nd, okay, and we're going to be doing that here. I think we're going to be casting it at about 6:30 Eastern Time. Okay, so some of you are going to be in places where you're not going to be able to watch that, but you can watch the recording of it. We're going to be doing that at 6:30 Eastern Time. All right, and then we have right on YouTube. We'll do it on YouTube. Rosh Chodesh is the new month, the new moon. Okay, let me just type something in here for you guys. Okay, that's what we're dealing with here. And then in 2 weeks after that, we have the Purim celebration. And we're doing that also on a Friday night. And we're doing that also at 6:30. I don't know how much of that we're going to broadcast or not. We'll have to see what we can do. All right, but we will, just so you know that that's what we're doing here locally anyway. And that'll be for the Purim comes on what they call Purim and Shushan Purim, so it's 2 days. And we'll be catching the tail end of Shushan Purim. Okay? Don't forget, you're setting your clocks ahead on the 10th. Okay? So this Saturday night going into Sunday at about 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning, you go forward an hour. Not all of you where you live, but understand that we're doing that here. We're moving our clocks. I know there are places like Arizona where they don't change their clocks, but most of the country will be changing its clocks. For those of you international, recognize that you're going to now have an hour difference in our time difference than it was from before, okay, because we are going to be moving our clocks ahead. Also, we are having leadership meetings on that Sunday, so be careful with the clock time change so you don't mess that up. And don't forget, of course, Passover. I know that Rabbi Tom already mentioned it. For Pesach, go ahead and get your registration in as soon as you get a chance, because we do need you to get them in, so we will, as we're running out low on rooms. General session is still showing on the MTOI Google Calendar for this Sunday. I will take that off. Okay, so we can fix that, no problem. All right. Pesach is not showing on the MTOI Google Calendar. That is because I am awful at getting the Google Calendar to read right. I will fix those things. Okay? If Purim is not live streamed, any suggestions on how to celebrate? Read the book of Esther. Okay, that's the main thing. Read the book of Esther and appreciate the miracles that were involved there. Okay? All right, Saskatchewan also doesn't move their clocks. Okay, so anyway, so we'll be working on those things. All right? Now, let's see. Do we fast for Purim? You do not have to. There is the fast of Esther, but you do not have to fast for Purim. That was something they did just at that time. Okay, occasionally there are groups that will, over the years, decide they wanted to do it with them, but there is no requirement to fast for Purim. Okay? Now, so I think that'll cover it for pretty much for most of the announcements that I can think of. I will be gone and traveling, keep my family in prayer from next Wednesday through Monday for 5 days. So I will be gone and come back. And so just keep that in prayer. Okay, I'm not going to be missing more than just that one Sabbath. Rabbi Tom will be doing the teaching on Saturday the 16th. Okay, but I'll be gone from the 13th to the 18th. Okay, that should cover for that. All right, let's go over now the Torah portion. All right, the Torah portion is the last one in the book of Exodus, and so I think what's good to do is to, as you go through these readings and you get through the journey of the Torah portions, when you get to the end of a book, it's not only, I think, important that we go through and understand kind of what was in that last Torah portion, but what was going on throughout the whole book. So it's time to go Salah. Salah is a Hebrew with the idea of pause and think. Pause and meditate. Salah. Okay? So when you get to this point, you want to do a little bit of Salah. You want to pause and meditate and think about what's been going on since the beginning. Remember, the book started with Moses. Okay? With the Israelites being enslaved. And then we get introduced to Moses being born. And at this point, they've journeyed out of Egypt, and they're starting to do things like build the tabernacle and anoint priests and make all kinds of things like the garments and the utensils and all of the different stuff for the tabernacle and for the priests. What a journey they have been on throughout the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus. For those of you that are reasonably new at trying to understand Hebrew, understand that Shemot does not mean Exodus. Okay? Shemot means names, because the beginning of the book of Shemot says these are the names. Okay, so we call it Shemot and then we call it Exodus. Sometimes you might think you're learning Hebrew, so you think, oh, Exodus. Shemot means Exodus. No, it doesn't mean Exodus. Okay? So that's not what's going on here. Now, as we go through the discussion of the Torah portion, what do we want to glean out of this? What we want to do is always glean, first and foremost. I know a lot of teachers will teach you, we have to look for Messiah in every Torah portion. Well, certainly that's not a bad thing to do. Okay? Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, says, well, these things were written for examples for you so that you could do what? Use it in your transformation journey. Learn from the behaviors and experiences of other people. And so that way you can glean the stuff that's there and say, how do I apply this in my journey? Because you're going to see throughout the journeys, some people made good decisions. Some people made very poor decisions. Okay? And hopefully we can learn from their mistakes and their successes, add them to our experience in the choices we make. Okay? So I'm not against you, obviously, looking for Messiah in the Torah portion. Everybody should always see things that point to Yeshua in things. But I want you, more importantly, as Raymond put the verse up from 1 Corinthians, and all these came upon them as examples, and they were written as a warning to us on whom the end of ages has come, so that he who thinks he stands, let him take heed lest he fall. Okay, that is the key. And so as you read the Torah portion, look for the things that are examples for you and what you saw as a warning to you to help you in your journey. Okay, Rabbi Tom's back in. Rabbi Tom, thank you so much for, the emergency stepping in that I needed you to do until I could get to the building. Now, hopefully when I get moved into the new house in another week or two here, I will be able to, if this kind of thing happens, only be 10 minutes from the building as opposed to 20 minutes from the building. So it'll be very quick for me to get here if I need to. Okay, had an emergency of my own. There you go. All right. Now, so let's look at this Torah portion and see what we can.
I'm focused. What do I have written? Okay, for me, I see this as details are very important to the Father. We shouldn't discount the importance of them. We should be concerned with, we should not be so much concerned as why he says how to do things, but we should be concerned of on the how more so much the why. So that's what I'm going to take from it today. And then that's what I got.
Okay, that's really good. You know, you're going to see this a lot throughout the Torah portions, especially as we get into Leviticus, that details often matter very much. Okay, now Yahweh tells us a lot of times when the details matter. And I'm not saying that they never matter, like there's times when they don't matter, but sometimes he gives us a little bit more freedom with some things, but sometimes he's very, very specific about how exactly he wants it to be done. He tells you exactly what colors to make things, tells you exactly how the measurements should be, what materials they're made out of. When we see the offerings are done a certain way with certain elements and ingredients and processes to them, and he expects them to be done. And look, we're told that in chapter 38 we see the encouragement that you're going to do these things according to, for example, according to the shekel of the set-apart place. So when he says that, what can we glean out of when he says things like, according to the shekel of the set-apart place? What is he really trying to tell us there? Anybody want to jump in on that? What do you think he's really trying to tell us when he says things like, do it according to the shekel of the set-apart place? Not your own reckoning, thank you, Mark. The smallest detail, his way, standards, his measurements. Be specific. Okay? All right, what I'm looking for is that he's showing us, right, there's a standard and he sets it. That's right, Raymond. What he's showing us is that there's a comparison and a measuring stick. So he wants you to compare what you may have thought, your shekel, to the one that he has standardized. So he gives us a measuring stick or something to compare to. There's our first reference, in a sense, to Yeshua. I'm not saying Yeshua was the half shekel or the full shekel of the set-apart place, but the idea of he is the measuring stick and he is the thing we compare to. He's the comparison that we make. We look at him and we look at ourselves and we see what needs to be adjusted. And it's not him, just in case you were confused. It's not him that's going to need to do any adjusting. Yeshua doesn't need to adjust. We do. Okay? So good stuff. Rabbi Tom put follow the pattern. Okay? Go to the anointed appointed authority to learn it. You don't teach it to yourself. All right? And so here is a great example. Now, now when I said that it's the measuring stick and the comparison, I'm going to incorporate what Raymond said. That shekel, where is that shekel? Where is that shekel being kept? You guys can all type in, where's that shekel being kept? In the temple. Okay. Isn't follow the pattern exactly teaching you to? Yes, it is. And that's from Exodus 25:9. Now, the temple where the shekel is, does everybody and anybody have access to that? No. Okay, so who has access to the set-apart shekel or the measuring stick for comparison? The Levites, the priests, the anointed appointed. Exactly. So that goes back to what Raymond was saying about you don't get to decide, okay, you don't get to go and, and do it and teach it to yourself. You don't get to choose how you interpret the measuring stick or the comparison. I'm sure what would happen is when you brought your shekel in and it was going to be compared to according to the shekel of the set-apart place, the priests were going to make that decision. And so there's where you're needing the teaching and the guidance of the anointed appointeds. So good point, Raymond. Thank you. Okay, the Kohanim, or in general, we would say the anointed appointed is the one whose job it would be to do these things. Because a lot of people will claim that they're doing and walking as Yeshua did when they're completely not doing it. I should say completely not. They're at least partially in strong and interesting ways not doing it. And so that's what we need to understand. Our slightly humorous, or sometimes very humorous, Mr. Greg Whalen says, Yeshua the fairest of all the weights and measures. Oh, goodness. Okay, now, so let's understand that these things are very critical to taking out of this. And that was just a piece of the important thing, that the idea of doing it according to. Now, we know from Exodus 25:9 that he says, I want you to build the tabernacle and build it exactly according to the pattern shown on the mountain. And then he puts people in place to help with the work. He gives them anointings to do the work of the metal, the work of the cloths, the work of the making of the different items and utensils and everything else that had to be made. And those people were anointed and appointed for that task. And then he puts priests and Kohanim, okay, the Levites and the high priests, the Levites and Kohanim, in charge of helping to make those comparisons and decisions as to whether or not something measures up correctly. That's why we're going to read about the problems that people would have on their skin or on their clothing. And so they would have to go to where? The priest, to have the priest interpret, whether or not there was an issue there, and if there was, what to do about it. So the priest, now by the way, this is why the priest, and we read about this in Jeremiah 23 at services on Saturday. This is why the priest and the leadership gets attacked so strongly by Yahweh, when they get attacked when they don't do their job of being the standard interpreter and the standard bearer for what we're supposed to be holding our measurements up against. When they're saying Yahweh said when Yahweh had not said, and that includes all of these things. And so they get themselves in all kinds of trouble. So it's a very important position, but it comes with a lot of responsibility and the higher level of double judgment. Okay, so let's make sure that we understand that. Okay, so this is critical as we go through. Now, okay. So don't just think, oh, well, then the teachers and leaders can just do whatever they want. No, that's why there's a lot of verses that talk about how much trouble they get into when they don't do what they're supposed to do the way they're supposed to do it. Really.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. I was thinking of something a little different. I was looking at considering the book of Shemot as a whole, now that we're at the very last parsha. It starts out, of course, with the infant Moshe being rescued from the river, and then we go through the bondage that the Israelites and the sufferings they went through in Egypt, and their wanderings in the wilderness, and now they're close to entering the Holy Land, but finally they have a tabernacle. And the tabernacle, of course, was something special because it was never destroyed. It was never desecrated or captured. But both temples, which are more permanent structures, were destroyed. I think there's a lesson alone in that. But what I was thinking of, that we should look at ourselves from the beginning, either the beginning of our lives or the beginning of our Torah walk, and consider how far we've come and all the ups and downs we've had, all the mistakes we made, all the sins we committed, all the high points in our life, and take stock of where we're at now. And is this where we really want to be? Yahweh said to Adam, where are you? And he didn't mean the physical location, I don't believe. He said, where are you? And so when Yahweh asks us where we are we ready to give him a good accounting of where we stand spiritually in this Torah walk? And that's what taking the book of Shemot as a whole brought to my mind.
All right. Thank you very much, Rabbi Tom. Amen. That's kind of what we're supposed to be doing, okay? We're supposed to be looking at these, okay, when we do a Torah portion, we're kind of zooming in on a 4 or 5 chapters worth of events. So it's kind of more of a micro looking. Sometimes you can really get into a chapter, maybe just a couple of verses, and really do a micro study. But at the same time, we have to never forget it's part of a journey. A journey of the created human being, starting in Genesis, where Yahweh decides to create people. And when he creates mankind, they start on a journey. Once they are thrown out of the garden, they start on a journey. And that journey is a journey what? Back into the garden, essentially. Getting back to the garden, to that place before the, quote-unquote, the fall. And so we have to make sure that as we go through these Torah studies, that we are paying attention to that journey. That we're not just so focused on, well, you know, this whole thing was just about blah, blah, blah. They're building this thing and pegs and rings and cloth and they're making different utensils and all this stuff. Well, it's part of a journey. Okay? It's part of a journey. And so some of it may seem like drudgery. Has anybody experienced any drudgery in their journey? Okay? All right? But that could be distracting. That could be discouraging. That could be frustrating. It could challenge your patience. Okay? So these things are there for that purpose. This is all part of a journey. And guess what? We're going then into the book of Leviticus and then into Numbers. And when we get into Numbers, we're going to see all kinds of things happening that are all fun and distracting and a mess. Okay? As they go through the wilderness. Leading into the book of Deuteronomy, when they finally get to the Jordan to cross into the land. And so that's really, really important, okay? Sometimes even the highs are too distracting. That's true. You have those good moments that can be very distracting, all right? No matter how many cycles you hear, you learn something new each cycle. That's good, and that's the way it should be. Rabbi Tom, is your hand still up, or did you want to say something else? Excuse me. Just checking on that. Okay, he put it back down. Okay, so one of the other things I want to point out in this Torah portion, very important, and okay, this doesn't always happen, so we need to enjoy this moment. You ready? Let's go to Exodus 39 and in verse 42. According to all that Yahweh had commanded Moses, so the children of Israel did all the work. And Moses looked over all the work and saw they did it as Yahweh had commanded, so they had done. And Moshe blessed them. You don't often see this. First of all, let's remember that they had to do work. Thank you, Greg, for putting it in there. They had to do work. But they not only had to just do any work, because people say, oh, well, you know, you're all about works. Well, I'm about his works. I think he's very interested in his works. And even Yeshua said, in greater works than I have done, you'll do. Which means we're going to do at least what he did. See, people read things like that, greater works you will do, means you're going to do magical things. You're going to do greater signs and wonders. I think it's more like greater Torah observance. Not that we could be greater than Yeshua, but we're going to go out there and do things to be a light to, he was a light to a very small group of people when he was here on the earth. He didn't travel that far. The message now is traveling because of things like the internet everywhere, every day. People are listening right now from all kinds of parts of the world. I mean, that's a work that we're able to do in some ways in greater proportions than what he was doing when he was at that time walking on the earth. But here's a moment where we see that they did what Yahweh said, and not only that, but they did it, this is important, they did it as Yahweh had commanded. They didn't do it their way. They didn't do it any which way they wanted. They did it as they were commanded by Yahweh to do it. And I know you're going to hate this part. You ready? Everybody ready to hate this part? And Moses had to verify it. Moses had authority and responsibility to verify that they did it as Yahweh had said. See, a lot of you don't want that. Oh no. You don't want any leadership to have to come in and verify that you're walking this right. Because you don't want to be corrected or embarrassed or ashamed that you're doing something and it turns out it's not exactly the right way to do it, because after all, you should be able to do what you want. Or you don't want anybody to notice and point out that it may be wrong or whatever. This is really tough. Okay? We have very few people that will get under a teacher and trust that teacher enough to follow that teacher in a complete way. That's not a cultist thing I'm saying. Okay? If you look at the Jewish community for an example, the Jewish community, up until the death, in one particular segment of the Jewish community, the Lubavitcher, the Chabad, they had a person that was known as the Rebbe, R-E-B-B-E. But whoever the head rabbi was, the people followed and listened because they trusted that he was anointed and appointed. I'm not saying he was. I'm just giving you an example of what it could look like. In our body, we don't have that. Why? Well, we've all been taken advantage of, and we've all been abused, and we've all been in cultishly awful things, and I get that. But see, can you find a leader that you will allow to verify your work? Am I reading this wrong? And Moses looked over all the work and saw that they did it as Yahweh had commanded, so they had done, and so Moses blessed them. Okay? And so Moses blessed them. So in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, I said they did as Yahweh commanded and Moses verified and then blessed them. Do you want a leader to verify and validate your efforts? Okay, Raymond goes, reading it wrong, Elohim forbid. This is where it's at. Okay? And so Sue says, Moses blessed them for using their talents. Well, Moses didn't bless them specifically for using their talents. Moses blessed them because they did what they did exactly according to the way Yahweh commanded it to be done. And by the way, I'm sure Moses was blessed to have the people actually follow directions. As a leader, I can tell you that is a huge blessing to someone in leadership. To have people that are actually going to do things according to the word and follow the directions correctly and in the detail and the way it was commanded. Let me tell you something. Let's take it into the secular world. How many of you supervise people as part of your job? Raise your hand. That you have some authority over some people. Okay, we got a bunch of you. Okay, now, I'm going to ask you to type a 7 for yes or an 8 for no this time. All of you who just raised your hand, all of those ones, okay? Even your mothers and your parents, you probably have the same thing. Parents, you know what? All of you can raise your hand because you have children, you can raise your hand. How difficult is it to work with the people you're working with when they don't follow directions, completely? 7s for yes, 8s for no's. Is it difficult to work with people who only follow things partially? Raymond apparently has a lot of people with a challenge to work with. Okay? Now, I could do the same thing. I could put a ton of 7s in here. It is very difficult and very challenging, and so, I will join the ranks of the 7s. Okay? Now, but I asked another question for all you guys out there. How much of a blessing is it when you give somebody something to do and they do it completely according to the way they were instructed? How awesome is that? Okay? More 7s. It's the most awesome thing. Now, we'll go back to 1s and 2s. This is going to be... How often, though, are you actually shocked when they actually do it the way you tell them? That shouldn't be. But guess what? Let's take that to Yahweh. Yahweh should not be shocked, and neither should Moses. But this is almost like they're shocked, like, wow, they actually did it exactly according to the way we commanded. They followed directions. Do you realize that, part of your experience and your journey is to, you ready for this? You're here to learn how to follow directions. Somebody should write that. We'll make a little, what is it called? Like an infographic. And we'll put a little mic drop on that. You are here to learn how to follow Yahweh's directions according to the way he gave them. That's why we're here. You've got so many years, they say how many score in 20, whatever it is, but you've got so many years to demonstrate your ability to learn to follow directions. Now, there's another piece to this. You need to learn. Okay, I'm going to write this there. Here it is. I'm going to type it out because I think it's important. Just give me a second. Okay? We need to learn to follow directions with full emunah. That's really where we run into the biggest problem. It's not just about following directions and becoming just works or doing and mechanical stuff oriented. It means to do it with faith and trust and expectation that whatever Yahweh has instructed to do, it will do what he claims it will do. We do it with full submission. We do it with our utmost, as Greg just typed in after all those ones. This is the critical piece. Following his directions with full trust, faith, and belief. How do we do that? We've been talking about the covenant. The covenanting thing requires us, as we've been talking lately, to have wisdom and to have understanding and knowledge. And if we have the knowledge of the true Elohim, we have knowledge of the Messiah, the Son of Elohim, then we should be able to trust them to follow them. Trust them enough to follow their directions. Okay? This is so key. Okay, it's pretty much the one time wherever this compliant, is it a coincidence? It was also the one time the scripture mentioned so many people being inspired. Treasure your impulses to do right and full emunah. There we go. Thank you, Raymond. Very good. Okay? And so, this is important. Okay, we need to learn to follow directions with full emunah. By the way, part of that is your requirement, scripturally, or encouragement, to find an anointed, appointed, and get under that teacher, but do it with emunah. Do it with faith that Abba has put them there. Because if they are actually, let's redefine things. What is the definition of being an anointed? It means that Yahweh has gifted them with the talents necessary to do something that he wants them to do. So when you decide that your teacher is, that you recognize that your teacher is, not that you decide, you don't get to decide and choose, but if you recognize that teacher as an anointed, appointed of Yah, then you have no other option really to be in compliance with what the Father's doing, but to get into an emunah-related relationship, a submissive relationship with that teacher. Now, of course, if that teacher is not anointed and appointed, well, then don't do that.
Oh, so it was only because earlier you said, people with this or that attribute raised their hands. And I was thinking, he was just talking about what a blessing it is to have people follow the instruction exactly.
Oh, yeah, if I said wait, raise your hand, and other people, I meant to put ones and twos or whatever, so sorry about that confusion. Okay, so Raymond, is your hand still up then? Okay, you took it down. All right. So that was really my confusion, but thank you for pointing that out. All right? Okay? Now, we're going to deal with something that may be a really touchy and weird subject to be dealing with, but, as we're talking about this, if you find an anointed appointed, do you, okay, this is, how do I want to cover this? All right. If you find anointed appointed, this is not me talking about me and my situation with you guys or whatever. I'm just asking, I think, a reasonable question. If you find anointed appointed and you're following that person, do you only submit to the parts that you agree with what they're doing or what they're teaching? Okay? The reason I ask this is because I noticed There are people that like a teacher, some people that like me, but they'll only follow up to a point. But I think you must recognize that if you follow that teacher, and that teacher is wrong, and you happen to be disagreeing with them, and actually it turns out you were right and they were wrong, I promise you, in my opinion, okay, this is my opinion, I promise you that you will not be blamed for following that teacher who is wrong in that one area, but you might get blamed for not following them and letting them get the blame for being wrong. Let me see if I can say that again. I don't think you'll be blamed if you follow them and they're wrong. You might be blamed for following a wrong teacher. Okay? Rick Campbell says, well, if it aligns with Torah. It's not about if it aligns with Torah. I'm talking about your interpretation of Torah. I'm talking about if that teacher, now if the teacher is teaching them it doesn't align with Torah, why are you following them? Okay? Let's just clear that up. If their teacher, all right, that you're following is not aligning with Torah, why are you following them? Let's assume and understand that they're following Torah. Now, that being said, like Raymond said, there's a wrong way to be right and a right way to be wrong. I think it's important for us to talk about because I notice there are people that will say, I am their teacher. I'll just use me as an example. I am their teacher, and they're aligned and wanting to disciple with me, and that they call me anointed, appointed, and then but there's still things that I teach that they do differently. There's still things that I teach that they go their own way. And it's not because they think that it goes against Torah, it's their interpretation of Torah. Okay? But remember, the one who's supposed to be doing the measuring stick thing is the priest or the leader who has access to the set apart place where the shekel is. So if he does it wrong, it's on him. If he does it wrong, your job is to find the teacher. Then the teacher's job is to teach. Your job is then to follow the teacher. Okay, now you're there to also be Berean. You have to check and make sure the teacher is actually, like you said, in line with Torah. But being in line with Torah doesn't mean their interpretation matches yours perfectly. Okay? You must use a lot of criteria to figure out whether or not that teacher is anointed and appointed. Greg says, I've done that wrong before. Sam Davidson says, that is not submission. Submission is when you obey, even when you disagree. Yes. But you know what? I have yet to experience very many, a few, but not that many people that are willing to actually do what's called submission. Because they'll claim they're submitting, but they're not going to submit when it really push comes to shove. And that's part of the journey. The journey is, are we learning to do things exactly what Yahweh says? What did Yahweh say? He wants us to submit. He wants us to find teachers. Paul teaches us, and I love Paul's teaching in Ephesians, when he talks about the Fivefold Ministry and how they're there for the purpose of bringing the saints or the believers or the covenanted body into the fullness of the measure of Yeshua. Okay? This is critical. So remember, we're not talking some cultist leadership thing here where I just want everybody to come and kiss my ring. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what's scripturally laid out, and you have. The biggest part of this is your burden. Your burden is to find that teacher you're supposed to find. Okay, that's your burden. The teachers have their burden. Okay, and their double judgment that they're absolutely going to face for the things that they did wrong. Very important. Very important. Kendall says Deuteronomy 17, which talks about the authority of leadership. And we'll get there eventually, sometime towards the end of the summer into September. Okay. Tom and Maria, like you said, the relationship has to be built. Rick Kimball says it's not in human nature to be that way. Correct. Jessanne and Jack, for my example, I agree with your Rosh Kodesh, but still enjoy seeing the first sliver. Okay? Okay, that's a great example. We at this time have chosen, and all of you should have listened to the teaching called Making the Calendar Decision, we have chosen to go with the Hillel calendar. In that teaching, you will know that I've never claimed that that's the right calendar on how to keep anything. I make an argument for why it's the right calendar under the current circumstances. And there's a difference. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, listen to the teaching. Okay? That's very important. All right? It says, what if that doesn't come up often? Well, it shouldn't come up often. If you pick an anointed appointed and you think they're really anointed appointed, you should not run into all kinds of things that come up often that you disagree with and have a problem with. Earl, Rabbi, you and I do not have much interaction, yet I know I have study habits following your teaching and working on my salvation. And if I need your personal help, I will contact you. I think your teaching technique helps me very much. And if you want interaction, I will gladly contact you. It's not that I want interaction. I'm just saying that when these interactions happen, and even if we don't interact, okay, I'll give you an example. You've heard, all of you mostly, how many of you have heard me teach on the appropriate way that seat should look? Okay? All right. And if any of you are following or submitted under this leadership as an anointed appointed, then if you're still wearing your seat with anything but white with one blue, even if you and I never speak, are you really submitting to the authority of the teacher that you're supposed to be submitted to? Okay? That's just giving you an example of how that could look. All right? Linda, if we can't submit to the appointed of Yah, how can we submit to Yah himself? Exactly why he puts appointed people in place. Good point, Linda. Okay, our love for Yeshua is why we want to submit. Rick Campbell. Okay, other people in there. Isn't submission an integral required part of discipleship? Absolutely. Raymond, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Okay, couple of things. One that was already on my mind, and the other one just sparked off of that comment. If we can't, obey those whom we have seen, how can we obey the one that we haven't? That's a beautiful parallel, actually, of what we have, in I think it's one of the John letters, one of Yochanan's letters, where he says, if you won't love your brother whom you have seen, how can you claim to love Elohim whom you have not seen? And we remember that Yeshua linked the idea of love and obedience all of the time, so that had to be in mind when Yochanan was writing that. But the other thing was, I think that part of why a lot of this submission stuff is so difficult for us to wrap our heads around a lot of the time is because let's just be very blunt, most of us are running around thinking of ourselves like, full-blown adult Israelites, warriors in the faith, and that this is an unfortunate programming inheritance from a lot of the backgrounds that people are bringing in. Our master, as conveyed to us in Matithyahu 18, beginning of the chapter, said that your business is to come into this as a little child. He says, if you can't do that, don't even worry about the rest of what the kingdom is going to look like. His disciples are debating about who's going to be the greatest. He's like, don't even worry about who's going to be the greatest. Worry about whether or not you're even going to get in at this rate, because unless you repent and become as little children, like this one right here, and he has a little child in front of him. Unless you do that, you can't even enter into the kingdom of heaven. If we remember that we have to start off like a little child in this, I think it helps the whole deal, because that helps key in a lot of what the Torah talks about. When the Torah talks about teaching and learning, it doesn't have a lot to say about sermons, and it doesn't have a lot to say about sitting and listening to someone explaining, the word in a congregational setting. The Torah doesn't really talk about that very much. What it does talk about very, very much is parents and children, and a teaching responsibility, like it talks about in the Ahavta, about how you shall teach them diligently to your children, impress them upon your children. And then the children have a responsibility to learn from their parents. Now, the vast majority of you, I'm guessing, grew up with parents who were not in this, but it's not like the Eternal just forgot about you. He provided for you a way to get that same level of blessing. You don't have to just be without that level of blessing that comes to a sweet little innocent Israelite child when they submit to their parents and obey their parents, because this is now your new family when you come into this, and you have to recognize, where is your papa? You have to recognize who are the people that have that responsibility over you, that are loving you and taking care of you and making sure you get fed and making sure you're kept safe and all of those things. Okay, you're a little child. Please act your age. Listen to your parents and obey, and you will be blessed. It's not that.
Amen. Thank you, Raymond, very much. That's a good point. Look, one of the things that I think is really critical to all of this is understanding discipleship. Matthew 28, at the end, Yeshua sends those who he discipled, and he instructed them with the Great Commission. Not a commission to you and me directly, as Christianity would say, but he gave us the commission he gave those who were trained the commission to go out and do what? To disciple. Okay? And discipling is not just making students like you think of. See, we understand things from the westernized public schooling and public education system, where people sit in front of material or sit in front of a teacher with other students, and they listen, and they write down notes, and then they go home and do whatever they do. Okay? And you listen to that teacher or you don't, and you get a grade and all that kind of stuff. That's not discipleship. That's a classroom. That's a school. Discipleship is a relationship between the student and teacher, where the student is going to trust that teacher and put basically his existence in that area of study in the hands of that teacher, and the teacher takes on the responsibility of the successful journey of that student. And so that's an agreed upon by both parties relationship. Yes, it is a covenantal relationship. There is an expectation of performance on both sides. Good point, AJ. Okay? And so this is really critical. All right? Excuse me. This is really critical to our understanding that, we are called to be disciples. We're not called to just be followers. We're called to be followers like the apostles or disciples were followers, the Talmudim. The Talmudim, disciples of Yeshua. And so, how do we practice that relationship? Okay, we're supposed to do these things in like manner to how he did. A lot of you love to throw around, we should get back to the first century model, and we should go do what they were doing. Well, go back to the first century model. People weren't going to public school. If you wanted to be a student of a teacher, you had to ask that teacher if he would teach you, and that teacher and you would covenant. And there'd be an expectation of performance, or the teacher would tell you to go take a walk and go somewhere else. All right? And so this is really important. And it was not, by the way, it was not unique in that first century to Yeshua. It was it was very common. I don't want to say incredible like it was a surprising thing. It was the normal thing. It was the normal thing. Normally you would be trained in a craft. You would be trained in a skill. A lot of the villages in Yeshua's day were known for a particular thing, like a fishing village. You ever hear the phrase, a fishing village? Because almost everybody in the village did fishing, and then they would trade the fish to other villages for other things that they needed, like crops. And then there were farming villages, and there were places where they did all kinds of things like building things out of wood or building things out of anything else. A bit more tribal, exactly. Okay? And so, let's understand that there's a big part of this that has to do with understanding that the discipling idea was very well understood by the people Yeshua spoke to. Okay, he absolutely was talking to an audience that when he told the disciples to go make disciples of the nations, he said, go find people that would want to contract with you, covenant with you, to learn what you know about the kingdom and about the Messiah and about the Father and about the Torah. And then you take on the burden of responsibility to teach them and to disciple them. Very important that we understand this. Okay? It's just really, really, really critical. Okay? Now, I say, wait, no feelings bags back then. Not in those relationships. The discipler had an expectation. If you said, I want you to disciple me, like an apprentice, the discipler had the... Let me ask you a question. Ones and twos. Very few of you, maybe a lot of you. How many of you have ever apprenticed? Have been an apprentice? Don't put no's. I only want the ones. Just the ones. How many of you have ever been an apprentice? Okay. Now, when you were apprenticing, the person that was responsible to teach you, when they said to do something, did they have an expectation that absolutely it was going to be sevens for this? Sevens for yes, eights for no's. Did they have an expectation that it was going to get done right, and get done quickly? Okay. You can type a few words for this. Let me just put, we'll go back to ones and twos. Would anything good come out of if you did not do the thing they said the way they said when they said? Okay. Sevens for yes, eights for no's. Were you, in the apprenticeship role, were you allowed to argue with, debate anything your apprenticer told you to do? Was that tolerated? Okay? If you did it a lot, would the apprenticer have given you the boot? Or would you go find something else to do? Okay? All right. See, we understand that in the secular world. Why don't we understand this in the spiritual realm? Now, nobody in leadership wants to give anybody the boot. All right? Nobody wants to say, go away, this is too hard for me to work with you. But understand, when you went to that apprenticeship program, part of what you were trusting is that those people knew how to teach you how to be a truck driver, a welder, a plumber, a carpenter, whatever the things were that we typically think of as apprenticing. And so you trust them. You have an expectation that you're going to learn to do the thing right. Okay? Let me ask all you guys who apprenticed. Was one of the things, we'll go back to ones and twos, was one of the things you were expecting in the relationship to learn how to do the task right? See all those ones? Okay? Okay. So that's what this is like. This is what discipleship is all about. I hope people can understand that. Now, what we do see in Exodus also, as we're kind of wrapping this thing up here, okay, in chapter 40, all right, I want us to notice something in verse 16. And Moses did according to all that Yahweh had commanded him, so he did. So Moses also, the leader, did everything according to what Yahweh said. Not just the people, but Moses. There's an expectation that the leadership has to lead by example. And Moses did everything according to what Yahweh said. So he did. Very important. Now, I want to say one more thing before we kind of wrap up. We got about 7 or 8 minutes. Let's see what else people say. Like baking cake, follow the recipe. We can do a study with all this. Humanity study up. Okay. The closest concept we have is apprenticeship, but there's no family dynamic necessarily inherent there. Discipleship necessarily leverages family mechanisms because your born parents often can't take you as far as you need to go, but fully going into who you should be in this faith requires a trust-based relationship where you know you are loved. Amen? Amen. Okay, so last piece of this for today, chapter 40 and in verse 36. And when the cloud was taken up from above the dwelling place, the children of Israel went onward on all their journeys. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not set out till the day that it was taken up. For the cloud of Yahweh was on the dwelling place day by day, and the fire was on it by night before the eyes of all the house of Israel in all the journeys. Look, some of you need to recognize where the cloud is. and then get to where the cloud is. A lot of you are doing that because you think of it as being here in Cleveland, Tennessee, so you're moving here. Find the cloud, get to where it is, and follow the cloud if it moves. If it doesn't move, you stay. Problem is, you guys decide the cloud moves because you want to move. Okay? You got to discern the cloud. Where is Yahweh's hand? Where is he blessing? Where is he doing a work? Where is he doing? I'm not just saying that because I think it's here. You need to figure it out. Okay? You need to figure out where that is. And then you have to go. It's very important. Let's see, responsibility, move out, halt. Okay, I mean, that is true love and accountability. There is true love and accountability at MTOI and Beth Shalom. Thank you, Rick. It was good to see you, Rick, while you were here. David and Amy, at the beginning of the chapter, Moses commanded how to situate a tent of appointment as furnishings, even though it is not Levitical. It is not until it is set up and the cloud is present that he is restricted. It's just like once we have covenant in our heart, we wear tzitzit, walk for walk, etc. Look, the wearing tzitzit and all the other stuff comes out of a desire to be covenanted. Remember, they were given the instruction at Sinai before they knew anything what to do. So they made the covenant and then they learned about the instructions. Someone asked earlier, do you have to be baptized to wear the tzitzit? The answer is no. But once you have been baptized, shame on you if you don't wear your tzitzit. And that's why in the 8 declarations, we have you declare that you're willing to take on all the responsibilities and abide by all the instructions of Yahweh and Yeshua, and to follow them to the best of your ability to bring the names, the authority of Yahweh and Yeshua, glory and honor, not shame. Very important. Okay? Let's see. Clouds are difficult to see through, but we must go through on faith. Thank you, Rabbi Tom. Okay, let's see. I don't know what WUK means. So, somebody's going to have to tell me, Greg. All right, let's see. Sounds like the name of a teaching. Follow the cloud. Raymond, and only make that decision the same way everyone else does if you want to end up where everyone else will. But the bride is not everyone. It is a little flock. Good. Make the cloud decision. I said only to make the cloud decision. Okay, you're talking about the cloud decision there. Wisdom, understanding, knowledge. I like that. Okay. Good. All right, that's going to wrap it up. I hope everyone had a good study and it was a blessing for you. I'm glad that I was able to get here and get this study in, even though I was hard-pressed and challenged at times. As far as the shirt is concerned, I'm wearing the black and the red and the green and the blue and and the purple. I'm wearing all of the shirts at the same time. That's maybe why the camera won't work at the moment. I look like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man with all these shirts on them. I'm all layered on. I'm kidding. Okay, so I'm actually not even wearing an MTOI shirt right now, to be honest. Okay? And I don't know why the camera didn't work. I apologize for that, but we had some challenges today technologically, and it is what it is. All right, so let's go ahead and get somebody to raise their hand to go ahead and close this study in prayer. Who did the opening prayer? I was not here for that. Arthur, okay.
All right. Father, we just come before you to recognize you, just to thank you. It's honestly a privilege to have a congregation, one that we can call family, our mishpachah, to come together and just to come before you, before your word, and to have leadership that is so on top of doing the things that they need to do to be judged accordingly by you, and not their own. And it's such a privilege that we can ask for prayer, we can give you praise, ones that are spoken or unspoken, and just come together and enjoy the time. So we thank you, Father. We ask that you continue to work in our lives and just continue to provide to our leadership and keep us together. And it's a blessing to know that during the day we look for the cloud and at night we get the fire. So we ask all of this in the name and the authority of your Son, Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And if you guys all heard the sermon on Shabbat, according to what Manny told me, even during the day, sometimes you get fire. All right. I'm just being silly. All right. So, thank you, AJ. Excellent prayer. Appreciate all of you for being here tonight. And I hope you enjoyed the study. I wish everyone a good week. Shabbat Tov. Wish you a good night. Laila Tov. And this way, we'll give a few seconds here for you to, I'm going to put a little countdown. When it gets down to 0, we'll go ahead and close the room. In the meantime, you could all say goodnight to each other. A reminder to all the leaders, don't forget we have a meeting this Sunday. Arthur, your hand is up. Did you want to say something or just leave it up from earlier? Okay. So just all remember that we do have this, and I'll mention that again on Shabbat. And let's all be excited about journeying into the book of Leviticus. I believe next week we will be hosted by Mr. David Botwick-Reese as we go into Leviticus. Because I will be getting ready to go on my trip. Am I taking calls tonight? Sure. I'd have to give you the number to call. Call the... I don't know. Do I have the 423 number forwarding to my, let me see this. David, call the 423-825 number. See if it rings my phone. 825-4975. Let's see if that rings my cell phone. Anybody else need to talk to me? What happened to it? Write to message. Ah. I got to figure that out. Hold on. Let me figure out why that's happening. Give me 1 second, everyone. You know why? Because it's forwarded to this number. Let me forward it to my cell phone. Can try it again. All right, it works. Okay, so if you need to call me, call that number. Okay, that'll work. Okay, Alan Genie. You can call me tomorrow in the afternoon. I'll be available after 2 or 3. Glad you are sleeping better. I don't know if that's actually true, Rick. I'm having less apnea issues. I'm only having about 5 an hour now instead of 35 an hour. But somehow I'm more tired during the day than I was before. So I'm not really sure if I'm sleeping better or what the deal is with that. So we'll have to see. I don't know what to say. I'm glad to know that I'm not having as many episodes where I stop breathing. So, am I sleeping different? I don't know what that means. Get CBD. I consider that. Could just be acclimating to the BiPAP. Well, the problem with the BiPAP is I'm not having any issues as far as going to sleep. It's at such a high pressure that the mask blows off a little bit and then the air blows into my eye and I end up with very dry, irritated, eyes in the morning. But they're all teary and irritated, but not so much dry eye because they seem to be very teary trying to fight the problem, but I don't know what to do with that. Can it be after 5:30 tomorrow because I was working? Absolutely. Okay? Call the 423-825-4975. That should forward to my cell phone most of the time. Okay? Area, I don't know what it is, but I think that's what's causing the problem. And Daniel did have a video, I think, on Torah Made Flesh, Daniel had, that shows one of the baptisms that we did. Can you wear a sleep mask? I don't know what that means. I do wear a BiPAP mask, which is a mask for sleeping, so I'm not sure You mean like something that covers over the eyes? I guess I could try to do something like that, but I don't know that would cap the air. The air is blowing straight up by the side of the nose into the corner of the eye. So unless I was wearing like swimming goggles or something, I don't know that would block it. Okay. You guys are just doing all of this, so I don't remember where I was in the countdown. I know. I see your plan. I see how you guys are. There you go. Now, I think probably what I'm going to try to do is apply some flog sauce and see if that works. Some of the men's Marco Polo guys are giving me the laugh out loud. There you go. That probably will fix the problem. Actually, I probably won't need a BiPAP if I would just drink, a couple of teaspoons a day. Will that ever die? I don't think so. It probably should. It'll give me X-ray vision. It'll help my golf game anyway. Okay, now, I don't play golf, although this building is right next to a golf course. So probably I should learn how to play. Okay. Celebrity endorsed. Oh, you guys are funny. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So, Christine, you are welcome to call, but do it after. Give it a minute or two after I close the room here to call, okay? And that should work. Give me just a few minutes after I close the room. All right, we're going to just shut this down. I think it's gone good here. Everybody have a good night. Blessings to all. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and close the room down. Love you. Appreciate you. We'll see you on Shabbat.